The objective for today is to understand how to get started with review and approve and navigate your way around the completion of your first proofs. To get personal with your proofs as we review areas of iMeet Central and to see proofs that are specific to you. And finally, to maximize efficiencies by understanding some advanced features such as version history, notification settings, and more. Some of you here today may have already had a chance to play around with the Review and Approve tool. Some of you, your company may have it enabled and you've had some experience already. For others on this call, this may be your first time seeing it. And we are going to approach the feature from a very basic, high-level standpoint. So some of this might be review for a few of you, but hopefully you'll all learn something new today about the Review and Approve tool. Before we dive into a demo, I want to go over a couple rules of thumb. These are some things that come up as questions with our support team from time to time. Maybe you don't know about these behaviors already, but let's just start with some basic rules. The first one is that proofs are a file state. We upload files and convert them into proofs. Proofs are visually flattened, which can take time depending on how large the file is. So when you upload a 30-page PDF and the PDF has layers, our servers are going to have to flatten all of those pages, and if you've got really high-resolution images, that can take longer. The average time to render a proof is anywhere from 2 to 30 minutes. So sometimes you have to be a little bit patient with the system. When a proof is closed, it reverts it back to a file. So while you're working in proofs, just be aware that you're always going to be in the files and discussions area. That's where you find files. And when you convert a file into a proof, it'll still look like a file in the files and discussions area. It'll just have a little logo next to it that says this is an active proof. Whoever creates a proof owns it. And the proof owner is a very powerful person in this process. There's only one owner at a time. The owner of the proof is the person who can upload new versions, and they are also able to add and manage participants. Now, you do not need to be a company or a workspace administrator to create proofs. So this means that your basic users, if they have a proof license, which I'm going to show you in a moment, and they create a proof, they have a degree of control as it relates to permissioning. Now, if you are a workspace administrator and you have a proof license, you can take ownership of a proof. So if a proof has been laying around for a month and the person who owns it, the person who created it, isn't keeping it moving along, if you're a workspace administrator and you have a proof license, you can take over and you can take ownership of that proof and get it through the process. Proofs awaiting review need your action. And you notice I put that in quotes because that's going to be a term we see in the system. So where we see a proof awaiting review, it means you need to take an action on it. If you comment or make a decision, it's no longer awaiting your review. So if you get involved in a proof and you're supposed to make comments on it, if you haven't made comments yet, that is a proof awaiting review. Now the flip side to that is a pending proof. A pending proof is a proof that needs your decision. So there's a subtle difference there between the two. Proofs awaiting review just need your action. Pending proofs need a decision. So as we get into the system, you're going to see that there's the option to either be a reviewer on a proof or an approver or a reviewer and an approver. And the difference is whether or not you can make comments or decisions. So a pending proof is one that's really hanging on you. Pending proofs tend to take precedence when you're planning your day. If you see a pending proof, you need to do something there. Now, once you make a decision, it's no longer pending. So those are the basic rules of thumb. Any questions there? I'm going to go ahead and dive into a demo. And again, if you've joined us in the past couple of minutes, welcome. Please use the public chat window in the bottom left-hand corner of the Global Meet room to ask any questions. All right, so we'll move forward. I am going to close this PowerPoint deck, and we are going to take a look at a couple different workspaces. You should see me here clicking around on my desktop. I've got a couple windows open. Now, I just want to preface our next hour. Just take a quick step back with me. I am currently running Google Chrome, and I am logged into iMeet Central as a fictitious person named Andrea. And in another browser back here, I'm logged in as David. So I'm logged in as two people. And the reason is that I'd like to show you what working on a proof is like for two different people. So you're going to get to kind of see what that relationship is. So just be mindful. If you see me clicking between browsers, I got two of them here, and they're two different people. I also have a couple files here on my desktop. We'll play around with these here shortly. So that's where we are. All right. So let's start with Andrea. Andrea is a company administrator in this fictitious test account. And so she has access to the company setup window. And I actually want to take us here first. I'd like to show you the proof settings area if you were a company administrator to familiarize you with the back end, how this is enabled. If your company has purchased the review and approve feature, so it is an additional tool set, you will have a proof tab here in company setup. And the proof tab is where you can configure default proof settings. You can assign proof user licenses, and you can create proof groups. Let's start here with proof users. All right. So when you purchase review and approve, what you do is you purchase a number of licenses. In this case, this company has five proof licenses. And you assign these proof licenses out to your internal users. So if we refresh our memory here on the internal members tab, I got all these people here in my company, and they have access to different workspaces, and they're working on all these projects, but only 5 of them can be given a proof license. And I can give them a license by just typing in their name right here, or I can pick it from my little magnifying glass. And I can say, let's give Eddie a proof license. I pick his name, and then you got to click on Activate Users here. That's the last step. And you'll see it says 1 license was added. I can remove people at any time by just clicking the little X box, the little X next to their name, and click on Activate Users again. Activate Users is sort of like your save button. And what that will do is it will enable or disable that person's ability to create proofs. Now, you don't have to have a proof license to participate in a proof. This is just about creation. The proof groups area is where I can configure teams of participants who might collaborate on proofs. So for example, I have a design team and I have a marketing team, but here's a common one that we see sometimes is we have a legal team. Let's say that you've got a group of 3 people on a legal team and they need to do a sign-off on documents. And every time you create a proof, you have to type in all 3 people's emails, and that takes forever. So we say create a proof group. Now if I click on add proof group, what it'll do is it will let me name the proof group, and it will also let me configure who the people are in the group and their default role. So I can come in here and I can say I have a proof group and it's going to be my legal team, and I type in email addresses. So here's kind of a fun thing about proofs. Proofs are one of the only areas in iMeet Central where you can invite outside users to collaborate on your files. So if I have a legal team of 3 people and they aren't users in the system, that's okay. I can just add their email address, legalguy1@gmail.com, for example, and maybe there's legalgal2@gmail.com, and so on. These participants would be sent an email invitation to participate on the proof, They can click on a link in their email and open the proof and make comments and decisions and the whole shebang. They don't need to be a user in the system to participate. So that's why it says enter new person's email. Of course, if they're a user in the system, then they can open proofs within iMeet Central. That's what we're going to see. I click on Save in the top right corner, and I have this group here. And I'm going to leave it here for now. We'll see it in a couple minutes when we're creating a proof. But this is where you can manage proof groups. Default proof settings apply across the entire company. These are the sort of starting settings for any new proof, but after a proof has been created, you can customize its own unique settings. For example, the daily notification settings here. If you want to increase or decrease the frequency of emails, you can do it here. Typically, we recommend that you just set it to daily summary. The reason is that if you have a team that says they want more emails, you can change it to hourly. But if you say, they say we just want to be notified of only final decisions, you can reduce the frequency by setting it to final decisions. So you may find that daily summary is a good starting point for you and your team, and then just adjust with feedback. Only one decision is required, is related to if you have multiple people who can make a decision on a proof. If only one decision required is set to yes, the first person who makes the decision is making the final decision. So if I'm working with 4 people and they're all approvers, and one of them opens the proof and says, this is approved, and we don't even have a chance to look at it, guess what? It's approved because only one decision is required. Some teams benefit from this if you just need sign off from one person, but 3 people can make the decision. It doesn't matter if 2 of them don't see it. You just need one person. You set this to yes. This is a subscription-enabled checkbox. This allows a person to add themselves to a proof if they open the file in iMeet Central. They don't need to be sent an invitation. They can just find it in the folder and click it and say, I want to join this proof. That kind of opens the door to a lot of participants. But if you're a team that is receiving passive input on your projects, it's like, well, if you have an idea, go ahead and pitch it. You may decide that you want to turn that on. But again, these are default settings, and we can change those after we've created a proof. All right. Let's get out of company setup, and let's go someplace a little more interesting. I'm going to go into a workspace called Brand Assets. And the Brand Assets workspace, I've got some people in this workspace with me, collaborating on files and discussions and so on. I've got a lot of folders in this workspace. And within these folders, I have different file types. The Photography Assets folder, I've got a lot of images, presentation templates, I've got some PowerPoint decks and so on. So let's start talking about how the feature works. When I upload a file into the Files and Discussions area, let's pick this one, Hawaii 1, and I open it. If I am a proof user, meaning I've got one of those proof licenses, I'll see up here in the top right corner a drop-down menu that says Proof Action. And when I click on Create, it will bring me to a new proof wizard. This is the first step to converting a file into a proof. I need to first indicate who it is that I'd like to participate on this proof and assign them a role. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this other user that we've got in the corner, David Manning, so you can see what his experience is like. I'm going to go ahead and create a proof on this image, and I'm going to invite David. So I'm going to say David, and because he's a user in iMeet Central, he populates in this list. If I were to just type in, let's say like Legal Gal 2, you'll see that it shows up here because it's part of a group, a proof group. But if I just typed in a random email address, you'll notice it doesn't pre-populate. So David is a user in the system, so his name pre-populates. And here is where I can designate what role that person plays. So there are 5 roles that a person can have in a proof. The first is read only, pretty self-explanatory. David would receive an email saying there's a proof started. Click here to see what's going on. He can see comments and decisions, but he can't participate. An approver is someone who makes decisions. We'll talk about decisions here shortly. A reviewer is a person who makes comments. They can draw, they can make typed comments, and so on. A reviewer and approver is a combination of the two, so they can make comments and then make decisions. And finally, a moderator is a person who can make comments, decisions, and moderate those comments, delete comments, change comment statuses, lock comments, and so on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in David as a reviewer, just to start. And I'm going to add myself, Andrea, here. As a reviewer and approver, so we can see the difference. All right, and to add more participants, I just click on Add Another Participant. Now, if I wanted to, I could just drop in a whole group. Remember that legal team I created? I can say, here's the legal team, and I can click on Add, and they would be dropped in automatically with those default settings. So that's where that company setting shows up, user group. Where it says notification subject and message, this is how the notification will show up in David's email. So right now it's just as a default, please review this, but you can change that. And you can include a message as well. You can say, here's a picture, wow, I can't type today, of some palm trees. I can also give a proof a deadline. Deadlines are great. We'll see in a minute how deadlines appear on the dashboard for helping people prioritize their work. We'll say that I need this to be done by June 21st. And if there is a specific time, maybe there's a cutoff time during your day, like when a printer closes, for example, you might say, I need this by 3 o'clock. You can set specific times by just clicking and dragging on this number right here. So if I click and drag, I can say 1500 hours. And I can click and drag on the minutes, and I drag to the left, and I say 3 o'clock. And I'll click on Create. While this is creating, I'll pause here. Any questions about uploading the file and converting it into a proof at this point? Great. Okay, so as discussed, when we create a proof, we're really converting a file into a different sort of file type. We're flattening the image. We're making it ready to mark up. It does take time, so you can see that this is currently being prepared in the background. You can stay here if you want, and when it's finished, it'll update. But I'm going to go ahead and just close out real quick. Oh, see, it's just finished. Let's back up. I'm going to go back into the Files and Discussions area, and you will now see that this file is an active proof right here. So I can see visually that a file has been converted into a proof. Now, when you convert a file into a proof, a couple things happen. The first thing is that your comments box disappears. So if I open this proof, and don't worry, we're going to play around in here in a bit, but you'll notice that over on the right-hand side, our sidebar is gone. That very familiar comments area is missing. And if I show the sidebar, you can see I can't make comments on this. Commenting is disabled when the file is converted into a proof. That's one of the key differences between a file and a proof. When you convert a file to a proof, all of your commenting is going to be done here with the Add Comment button. There are some things that I can still do with a proof, however. If I back up, I can change a proof status, for example. I can say this is pending approval. And I can also move proofs into different folders. So I created a folder here called Active Proofs. Maybe you decide that you want to keep all of your proofs in one bucket. You can move that. I'll use this way. Move Active Proofs. This is a nice way to keep things organized for you and your team if you want. You'll notice that when I go to the All Items route here in Files and Discussions, it shows up in this list, but there isn't a way to sort these files by whether or not they are a proof. So you may want to put them in their own folder. Once a file has been converted into a proof, if I'm a participant on that proof, I'll find it on my dashboard. So let's go back to the dashboard. And you're going to see here that I have 2 proofs awaiting my review. There's a brochure PowerPoint we'll look at in a moment, and there's my image. And you see there are my due dates. Notice the due dates don't include the time, they just include the date. Where the time comes into play is that 24 hours before the due date time, an email notification goes out to whoever's participating. So if you set the time to 3 p.m., that's when the printer closes, for example, at 3 p.m. the day before, that's when we'll start shooting out emails to your team to let them know they need to make a decision. So here's where I can find some proofs awaiting my review, but I can also find proofs that I'm participating on by going to my name in the top right corner, and I can come down here to where it says proofs. And in this window, I will find my pending proofs. So there's a keyword from the PowerPoint deck, my pending proofs. These are proofs that are waiting on my decision. And here are proofs awaiting my review. Now, the list is the same right now because I am a approver on both of these, and therefore they're waiting for my review, and they're also pending. They're the same. But let's take a look at David. Let's see what David sees. David was invited to participate on that proof. David did receive an email notification. When he logs into the system, he sees, oh, there's a proof awaiting my review. And if he goes up to his name in the top right corner and he goes to proofs, notice that Hawaii 1 is not in the My Pending Proofs list. See the difference? The reason is because David is not an approver on Hawaii1.jpg. It's not hanging on him, but it is a proof that's waiting for his review. So if you are participating on the proof, it will be in the Proofs Awaiting My Review page. If you're an approver, it's in My Pending Proofs. And that's why when you go to the Proofs window from here, it defaults to My Pending Proofs because we consider those to be the real cliffhangers. These are the things you really need to go in and take a look at. Now, for Andrea created that proof. She will also find that proof down here where it says pending proofs created, completed proofs created, and so on. She's got this created bucket. Anybody has access to this, but if you haven't created any proofs, you wouldn't find anything here. But you'll notice that Andrea has a way of looking in to see all of the proofs that she's created, which are currently pending. So notice the status here is blank. So if Andrea is a designer and she's working across 10 different projects and she's uploading proofs, uploading files, converting them into the proofs, and she's waiting for feedback, she may spend some time in this, pending proofs I created. Now within any of these views, I can expand out the details here and I can see what's going on with each of them. I can also tell whether or not the participants are reviewers and approvers or just reviewers. I also have visible to me these boxes that say SOCD, and if I hover over them, I'll get a little more information, but this is a really important and cool feature, SOCD. You'll see this around the platform a lot. These boxes will change color depending on whether the participant was successfully sent an email notification. So that's what the S means, S for sent. If it's green, it means that our outbound email server got a confirmation that this was received on the other end. So it's not just that we sent it, it's that we know they got it. If it didn't come back, it'll be yellow. So if we typed in an email address incorrectly, it'll be yellow. But if it's green, they got their message. O is opened. This is either green or white, so David has not opened Hawaii. C is for comment, and D is for decision. So notice that here on this proof, Hawaii 1, David is not an approver, Therefore, we're not waiting on him to make a decision. The little d is missing. Now, this information updates rather quickly within the system. So here I can see David hasn't opened this proof yet, but let's go ahead and let's flip back over to David. Let's go ahead and open that proof. Let's say that I'm David and I log in and I go, oh, look, there's a proof waiting for me. I can click on this title here and it will open the proof. When David opens the proof, it will update our servers and we will know that he's been in there. If we give this a couple seconds to stew and I refresh, we will see that this little O is going to turn green, and it means that David has opened this proof. So you're able to track whether or not your team members are participating. So that's what these SOCDs are for. Any questions about how the system changes and the behavior of the system when you convert a file into a proof? Or any questions about how to find proofs that you're working on? All right. Well, if one comes up, go ahead and use that chat box in the bottom left-hand corner of our global meet room, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. Okay. Let's now take a closer look at proofs. I'm going to go into Hawaii 1, and again, I am logged in as Andrea, and I'm also logged in as David, so I'm seeing two different experiences. Andrea is a reviewer and approver. Andrea also created this proof, therefore she is the proof owner, and so Andrea is going to see a few more bells and whistles than David. I'm going to highlight those for you now. Let's take a tour of the review and approve interface. Within the review and approve tool, you've got a lot of new buttons that will help you to navigate across the file. Up in the top left corner, you'll notice that there are a row of buttons here for some added functionality. You'll also find the ability here in the top right corner to maximize a proof. So if you want to look at it in full screen, you'll see some additional things there. We'll look at that in a moment. We have our add comment and finish review button here at the top. You click on this if you want to add a comment, and if you want to make a decision, you click on this. In the bottom right-hand corner, we've got some zoom controls. So I can zoom in and out, and then I can sort of move around if I need to. You'll notice on this one, this is really teeny tiny. You kind of have to squint. But there are two little black dashes on the zoom scroll bar. And those indicate they're like snap to points. One is actual size and one is zoom to fit. So in this case, this is kind of a small image. So they're really close together. But if you notice I track across here, eventually I'll snap and it'll go boop, fit the page, and there should be snap original, I think, is in there somewhere. So that's what those little gray things, those little black things are. I can change my zoom here if I want. So I can say fit to page. And I can measure stuff too. So if you're working on graphic sizes and you want to know how big something is, if you click this little ruler in the very bottom right corner, you'll notice that it gives you this box. This is not a comment box. This is just used to measure stuff. So I can come in and I can say, how big is this palm tree? This palm tree is about 191 by 179 pixels. The entire image is 600 by 399, and I can change things depending on the image metadata. So if you're working in like print resolution, you'll also unlock some of these ideas here too. You can measure stuff here. The workflow button in the top left corner will show you all of the participants. It will show you their role, reviewer and approver, reviewer. It'll show you if they've opened, made comments, decisions, and so on. The information details button here gives you some additional data. If you have metadata stored on this image, you'll find it. So if you're taking photos with your real nice Canon camera and you want to know what your f-stop is, you'll find that in here. This is just a JPEG that we pulled from somewhere else, so we don't have any of that fun stuff. The email notifications button is where an individual can come in and change their default email frequency. So if you remember, these options were available in company setup, but a participant can come in and say, I'm getting way too many emails. I just want a final decision here. I can download the file right here. Click on download. So I can download it to my computer if I want. And I can also print it. The print summary button is super cool because it doesn't have anything really in here now, but it will show you a breakdown, a transcript of all the comments made on this proof. We get questions from people. They say, if I ever wanted to get a history of the proof and I wanted to print it, you can do that. You can either print it to your printer or you can save it as a PDF file. We'll come back to this in just a second. I'll show you what that looks like when I make a comment. Oh, look, I just closed that window, didn't I? Can I reopen a closed window? Pardon me. There we go. Where was I? I was here. I was in Hawaii. Okay. So let's talk about comments and decisions. A reviewer can make comments, therefore they will have the Add Comment button. And when you click on the Add Comment button, you're going to get some markup tools. You can draw rectangles, you can use a free line, you can make arrows, and so on. Some of these tools have additional features. You can change the markup color. You can change the line weight. Changing the markup color comes in really handy because if I've got if I draw a blue arrow against this blue background, it's kind of hard to see. So we've enabled this ability to say, okay, in this case, I really need to use yellow or red because that stands out, or green because that's a complementary color, so that really pops. And then I can change my line weight here too. So you've got some ways to play around. You can draw multiple things at once, and they will all link to a comment. So you draw stuff, and then you make a comment. And the comment is just a plain text message. This tree is way too big. I'll click on Save. If I want to make a decision on a proof, I would click on the Finish Review button. If I'm in the comment mode, you'll notice that the Finish Review button just turns into a little green check. But if I want to exit comment mode, I can click this X here. And Finish Review gives me 4 options. Approved, approved with changes, changes required, and not relevant. And I'm going to use Microsoft Word here to tell you a little bit more about how these 4 decisions relate. This is a common question that we get about when you have multiple approvers on a proof and they all submit different decisions, what's the final decision? So let's say that I've got 3 approvers on this particular proof. And they all submit decisions. The first one, he says that this is approved. The second person comes in and she says it's approved. And the third person comes in and says changes required. Capital R. There we go. And this is what we get. If we look back here, you'll see approved, approved with changes, changes required, and not relevant. So 2 people said approved and 1 person said changes required. The final decision, survey says changes are required. You have to have a unanimous approval on a proof for it to be approved. Now that is considering if you're using that setup that says that not 1 decision is required. If 1 decision is required and these 2 people haven't looked at it yet, and approver number 2 comes in and says it's approved. If you're not requiring all decisions to be made, then survey says it's approved. And again, that was in that company setup area. The other choice here is approved with changes. Now, this is kind of an interesting one. So when we say that something is approved, what we mean to say is that the current version I'm looking at is what I approve. But somebody might make a comment. They might make a comment like, can you brighten up this image? And then after they make the comment, they say approved with changes. And this person says approved. The final decision is approved with changes, and the designer will need to go in and read this comment and apply it. And the idea is that once you've made these changes, I'm happy with it. So let's walk through that. Any questions there about that unanimous approved decision? Let's walk through that. I'm going to click cancel, and I'm going to make some changes here. If you remember, when I set up David as a participant, I only made David a reviewer. So if we look at what David sees, David doesn't see the decision box. He can only make comments. Notice that when two people are in the proof at the same time, if they make comments, it populates live. So if I'm David and I make a comment here, this is kind of cool. And let's do this. Let's draw a box here, and I'm going to say, this is David coming in, and he says, insert the sun here. Great. When he makes comments, it doesn't take very long for the other person to see it. Their screen will automatically refresh, and they will see that that other participant has made a comment. So if I go up here to where my comments, this is a comments view thing right here. I can change it to list or full list or single comment. If I go to full list, you'll notice that David's comment popped up. So multiple people on the proof at the same time, they work great. You'll see comments happening live. And again, this little drop down here lets me change the way I like to see, if I want to just see single comments or if I want to see hide comments and so on. So David can come in and make comments. Andrea can reply to comments. Andrea can come in and say, sure thing. I'll make you an approver on this proof. Now, as these comments are happening, depending on the email frequency, these people may be getting emails. Wrong button, right here. Replies to my comments. If this is checked, then you'll get these email notifications. But if you just need to get somebody's attention, use the @ symbol and start typing in their email address, David. And it will let you ping that person via email. By the way, you can decide if it's approved with changes once I upload the version. Great. And so on. So you can have a whole conversation here. And as I promised a couple minutes ago, if I go back to my little print summary window, I'll now start to see all of this. So there's Andrea's comment. There's the conversation regarding this comment, insert the sun, and so on. It shows you what time those comments were made. And it shows you who made the comment. So that's what that little print window does. Okay. So David doesn't have the ability to make decisions on this. He can only make comments. But as the proof owner, I can make changes to the people on a proof at any time. I can go up here to the proof action button, and I can click on edit. And from the proof action edit window, I can go in and I can make David an approver. I can double click to edit a field. Double click here, and I can say, you know what, you are now a reviewer and an approver. I can change his individual deadline. So for David, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is overdue. I can change his notification frequency. From here, I can also decide whether or not I want to complete the proof after one decision or not. So if I want to go ahead and override that company setting, I can do that here. And finally, I can decide whether or not to allow people to add themselves to the proof. We'll look at that here in a couple minutes. So again, to get to this screen, I'm going to click on Update. To get to this screen, the proof owner can go Proof Action, Edit, and double-click to make these changes. Now, once these changes are made, they take a couple seconds to push across. You'll notice that David, his name now has a D at the end of it because he's now an approver, but it's red because the deadline is passed. So that's a little visual indicator to let you know that he's behind schedule on this. Let's go to David now. Let's back up a step. Let's go back to his dashboard, and let's find that he now has an overdue proof. So this is 2 days late because the deadline for David is 2 days ago. And you'll also see it says pending because he's an approver now, and he will find this proof now in his My Pending Proofs area. So David can go in here, and David can make a decision. So he made some comments. Andrea changed his permission settings. He now has the ability to make a decision, and he's going to make a decision. He's going to click on Finish Review, and the decision he's going to make is changes required. And when he makes the decision, he's made a comment, he's made a decision, he's now done his part. What we're going to find is that on the dashboard, give it a couple seconds, this Hawaii.jpg reference, it will disappear. It's no longer waiting for him. So users can kind of keep track of what their workload is by this. We'll also see that if we go to his My Proofs window, it's also gone from here too, because it's done. Now, Andrea, on the other hand, if she goes to the My Proofs window and she goes to Pending Proofs I Created, she can expand this and she can see that David made a decision of changes required with comments. She can go in here. She can read David's comments. She sees that what David said was, insert the sun here, and now is when we begin pushing into round number 2. So at this point, we've had people participate, comments, decisions, back and forth. We're making comments on comments and so on. David made a comment here, insert the sun, made a decision, changes required. So now Andrea says, all right, I'm the designer, I'm the proof owner, I'm going to go ahead and make those updates. Andrea has this file here on her desktop. So she can edit this. And I have a really powerful program here on my computer. I don't know if any of you are in marketing or media, but I have this cool thing called Paint. It's a very powerful program for this purpose. And I'm going to go ahead and draw sun. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll make it yellow. Why not? And I'm going to draw my sun. And that looks really good. I'm going to save this. And now that I've made those changes, so here's my beautiful picture with the sun in it, I'm going to go ahead and upload this new version. I see there's a question. I'll come right to you in just a moment. So I'm Andrea. I've made changes to the file. I'm going to go ahead and upload this new version. I can make some comments here. This goes out in the email blast. Hey, David, I added the sun. I can set a new deadline, and I can click on OK. And what will happen is the file will be uploaded. iMeet Central will preserve the version control, so it will create a new version of this proof. It will save version 1 in the background if you ever need to get to it. The file is immediately converted into a proof, and as soon as that conversion is completed, emails will go out to the participants saying a new version has been uploaded. Which tab can we click to show the proof settings? Great question. There are a couple places that you can go for that, Allie. The first one is within a proof, you have the workflow button here in the top left corner. This can show you some basic information about what roles people have been assigned, but the proof settings area is really here. It's in proof action edit. This is where you get to go if you're the proof owner, and this will let you change those basic settings as to notification frequency, deadline, roles, as well as whether or not you want to complete a proof after one decision or allow people to add themselves to it. How can you see previous versions? Great question. So I've uploaded this picture with the sun, and you will notice that in the top left corner, I now have a V1 and a V2 tab. And if I click on V1, it will show me the original image, and even better, it'll show me all the comments that were made. So I'm able to get some story here. And yes, Allie, only when you are the owner. So again, the owner is a very powerful person. And let me show you what that looks like if you're not the owner, how you can fix that. But this should answer your question here, Rob. You can switch between these tabs. And yes, if you're the proof owner, you can go to Proof Action Edit. For this image, we'll wrap up this story. Now that I've uploaded the new version, if David were to refresh his page, he will now find that he again is waiting. We're waiting on him to make a decision on Hawaii, this picture. He'll open this proof, he'll see the latest version, and he can make his final decision. So David sees this, he goes, wow, this is exactly what I wanted. What a beautiful sun. And he can go finish review, and he can click on approved. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick settings change here. On Andrea's side, I'm going to change the decision-making setting to complete proof after one decision, just so you can see what that behavior is like. I'm going to go back to David, I'm going to refresh, and Allie has a question. So when you have several versions, all of them will be noted in the upper left, so we can switch back and forth. The answer is yes. So if you've got 10 versions, you'll have 10 version tabs, which makes it easy for you to look back on the prior versions. Now this is actually raises an interesting point. At any point in this process, the proof owner can add more participants. So let's say that we're here in version 2, and Andrea decides that she needs to pull in somebody from the legal team. For this one round, she can come up here to Proof Action Edit, and she can add more participants. She can add me. And she can say, I need you to come in and approve this. She can add this participant from here, right here. That takes a moment to refresh. There we go. And click on Update. And now this person, the new person will be sent an email. But here's the caveat. And maybe this will shed some light on where you're thinking, Allie. When you add a person to a proof, they will only see the versions that they were a participant in. So I just added someone. If I go to Workflow, you're going to see I've got 3 people here. But I was not a part of version 1. Therefore, all of the comments made on version 1 will be hidden from me. So be mindful of that. As you're adding people to proofs, they will not see prior versions. But for Andrea and David, they will see the 2 tabs, version 1 and version 2, and any subsequent tab. So if you're working on a project and at some point you remove a person from a proof, if they ever went back in to look at that, they would only see the tabs that they were a participant in. Okay. Great questions. Are all of these versions saved under the same JPEG name? Yes, they are. Let's go ahead and wrap up this proof. So I've changed the proof setting in Proof Action Edit to complete proof after one decision. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to David now and refresh. David sees he likes the sun. He's going to go ahead and make a final decision of approved. and a couple things are going to change. When the proof is approved, when it's all said and done, either approved or approved with changes, the proof gets reverted back to a file. So David says approved, only one decision is required. We give this a second. It says this proof has been locked. If I don't refresh anything, you'll see that Andrea saw it happen. So this happened on Andrea's end live. She might have been in the middle of making a comment. It doesn't matter. It's done. And if I go back into my files and discussions area, you'll notice, we give it a minute, that little active proof logo is gone. It's no longer a proof. To Jessica's question, are all these versions saved under the same JPEG name? They are. Notice that the JPEG name Hawaii 1 has 2 versions. And if I open this file, if I was a participant on the proof, in this case, David was a participant, he can or she can open that proof and look at it. If you click on View Proof, it'll show you the proof history. So you can come back in here and you can say, show me what happened. Remember, you have to be a participant at some point to see this. But here's my V1, V2 tab for the proof. Great. And if I click here, this little button, return, it'll take me back to my iMeet Central area. But check this out, Jessica. If I go up here to the top right corner and I click on More, and I come down, down, down to version history, I will find that our servers are keeping copies of everything for you. So here's version 1. Here's version 2. Version 1 didn't have the sun. I can download that, and I can say, show me the original, and voila, there's the original version. So we keep all your versions. If I upload a new version to this file right now, check this out. This is kind of fun. Let's say that I drag and drop this file back in here. David, in this case, is uploading a new version. You'll notice that it now says version 3. And if I go in here, you'll see that there is no proof history on this version. This was version 2. This is version 3. Let's take a look at how some other files proof. How long do the versions get saved? Well, we save everything until perpetuity. We never deprecate old versions. So I have seen Excel spreadsheets uploaded into iMeet Central that are like a year and a half old, and they've got 40 versions because they've been uploading it, 2 or 3 times a month. And we keep all those versions, so there is never a point at which a version disappears. So they're saved forever. Let's take a quick look at some other file types and how they preview in the Review and Approve tool. I have a presentation template. This is a PowerPoint deck that's a proof. Let's look at this just so you can see how different file types preview. So this is a PowerPoint deck. This is today's PowerPoint deck. Notice on the left, if you have a multi-page document, you get your little thumbnails here, and you can click on those, or you can scroll up and down. I can change that view to be a sort of like continuous, like a ribbon style, if that's how you like to work on things. I can change it to be a magazine layout. If I have the full screen view enabled, which is up here in the top right corner, full screen view will turn on a couple extra buttons. It's not a significant difference. Some people really like working in full screen. I personally don't find the difference to have that many additional features, but it's there if you want it. Doesn't look like that one's loading for David. Let me back up. I'm now Andrea. I just flipped over to Andrea. And again, I'm flipping back and forth between the two because they're two different users with different sort of behaviors going on. Let me see if I can find another active proof real quick. I'll just make one more. Oh, here we go. Hawaii 2. Hawaii 2 is an active proof. And I'll just show you what that full screen mode looks like. Full screen mode, I think the one thing that you get out of full screen mode that is kind of cool is that you can do a side-by-side comparison between previous versions. So there's two versions here, version 1 and version 2. Oh, cool. One's a picture of a sea turtle and one's a picture of, wow, that was a big change. But you'll notice that if I switch to full screen mode right here, and we're almost done. Just want to be mindful of our time. It's kind of our last cool thing. In full screen mode, you will see some additional view buttons down here, like fit to page, fit to width, 1-to-1, actual size. You can rotate things if you need to. But the really cool feature here in full screen mode is this button right here, compare. If I click the compare button, it lets me see the two versions side by side, and if I drag one, it will move the other. I can also give more screen real estate to one or the other. And so this kind of helps me to see the story if I wanted to view version 1 to version 2, and so on. I hope that you learned something new today. If you have more questions later on, if you're wondering if you can learn more, go to our Help Center at help.imeetcentral.com. Otherwise, you can reach out to your engagement manager